There are over 8 billion people on Earth. Most of us look at documentaries about cults and think the exact same thing. I would never fall for that. It's comforting to believe that the people who join cults are somehow different, less intelligent, more gullible, easier to manipulate. But psychology paints a much more uncomfortable picture. In fact, many researchers argue that under the right circumstances, almost anyone can become vulnerable to extreme influence. Because cults don't usually recruit people by saying, "Come join a cult." They offer friendship, purpose, acceptance, a place to belong. And by the time someone realizes something is wrong, leaving may feel far more terrifying than staying. This is the psychology behind why it's so hard to leave a cult. One of the first reasons is that it rarely starts with control. Imagine you've just moved to a new city. You don't know anyone. Maybe you're grieving, going through a breakup, starting college, feeling lonely, looking for answers. Then one day, someone approaches you. They're incredibly kind. They tell you that they've never met someone quite like you. They invite you to dinner. Everyone remembers your name. They listen when you speak. For the first time in a long time, you feel like you belong. That first experience doesn't feel dangerous. It feels wonderful. Psychologists call this love bombing. Love bombing is the practice of overwhelming someone with attention, praise, affection, and acceptance very early in a relationship. It's not unique to cults. It can happen in unhealthy romantic relationships, certain workplaces, and other manipulative environments. The important thing isn't the kindness itself. It's that your brain quickly begins connecting this group with feelings of safety, happiness, and belonging. Humans have evolved to seek connection. Being accepted isn't just pleasant. It's one of our deepest psychological needs. One of the biggest misconceptions is that people join cults overnight. In reality, they usually don't. Psychologists call this the foot in the door effect. People are much more likely to agree to a large request after they've already agreed to a small one. It might begin with attending one meeting, then volunteering, then donating a little money, then spending more time with the group, then changing daily routines. Each step feels small. Each decision makes sense by itself. Looking back, the changes seem enormous. Living through them, they happen so gradually that you barely notice. This is one of the most powerful forms of influence because people naturally want to stay consistent with their previous decisions. After enough time, something even deeper begins to happen. The group stops being something you participate in. It becomes who you are. Psychologists sometimes call this identity fusion. Your friendships are inside the group. Your purpose comes from the group. Your routines revolve around the group. Your beliefs become connected to the group. Notice a pattern there? If someone criticizes it, it can feel as though they're criticizing you. Now, imagine trying to leave. You're not just walking away from meetings, you're walking away from your identity. That's psychologically similar to losing an entire version of yourself. Many high-control groups slowly encourage members to distance themselves from people outside the group. Family members become negative influences. Old friends don't understand. Outside information becomes dangerous. Sometimes this happens gradually. Sometimes it's much more direct. The result is the same. Your entire social world becomes smaller. Humans are incredibly social creatures. Research consistently shows that social rejection activates many of the same brain regions involved in physical pain. Now, imagine knowing that if you leave, you could lose every friend you've made. Suddenly, leaving isn't just a decision. It feels like social survival. Here's where psychology becomes fascinating. Imagine you've spent years devoted to a group. You've sacrificed relationships, money, time, your future. Then someone presents evidence that maybe the group isn't what it claimed to be. You might think people would immediately leave. Surprisingly, that's often not what happens. Psychologists call this cognitive dissonance. Cognitive dissonance is the uncomfortable feeling we experience when our beliefs and reality don't match. Instead of changing our beliefs, our brains often try to reduce the discomfort by finding explanations that preserve what we already believe. It's just a misunderstanding. The critics are lying. They're trying to attack us. These explanations reduce psychological discomfort, even if they aren't accurate. It's not because someone is unintelligent. It's because human brains generally prefer consistency over uncertainty. Closely connected to cognitive dissonance is something called the sunk cost fallacy. Imagine spending 10 years climbing a mountain. Someone tells you you've been climbing the wrong mountain the entire time. Would you immediately climb back down? Or would part of you want to keep going because you've already invested so much? The more someone has sacrificed for a group, the harder it becomes to leave. Not because leaving is impossible, but because leaving means accepting that years of effort may have been based on something that wasn't what it seemed. That's an incredibly painful realization for any human being. Fear is a powerful motivator. Belonging draws people in. Fear often keeps them there. Many high control groups teach members that leaving will lead to terrible consequences. Maybe they'll lose everyone they love. Maybe their lives will fall apart. Maybe the outside world is dangerous. Whether these fears are presented as spiritual, emotional, or social consequences, the psychological effect is similar. Fear changes decision making. When we're afraid, our brains become more focused on avoiding danger than exploring alternatives. The unknown suddenly feels far scarier than the familiar, even when the familiar is unhealthy. One of the most confusing psychological experiences is called trauma bonding. This happens when periods of fear or emotional pain are repeatedly followed by moments of relief, affection, or approval. Over time, this creates a powerful psychological attachment known as trauma bonding, where the brain begins to associate the source of distress with the source of comfort. In cults, leaders often use this pattern intentionally, alternating between criticism, isolation, or punishment, and then offering praise, acceptance, or a sense of belonging. This emotional roller coaster makes members more dependent on the group because the same system that causes their distress is also the only place they feel relief, making it much harder to leave. The brain begins associating the source of both pain and comfort with survival. This pattern isn't limited to cults, it's also studied in abusive relationships and other situations. The unpredictable cycle of criticism followed by acceptance can create incredibly strong emotional attachments. From the outside, it seems irrational. From the inside, it feels incredibly real. So, if all of these psychological forces are working together, how does anyone ever get out of a cult? Interestingly, people rarely leave because of one dramatic event. More often, it's a series of small cracks. A prediction that never comes true. A leader who behaves differently than they preach. A question that can't be answered. An old friend reaching out. Access to new information. One contradiction becomes 2, then 5. Eventually, the discomfort of staying becomes greater than the fear of leaving. Leaving usually isn't a single decision, it's a gradual psychological process. And even after someone leaves physically, it can take years to rebuild trust, identity, relationships, and confidence. It's easy to watch stories about cults and wonder, how could anyone possibly stay? But maybe the more revealing question is why so many of us are convinced we'd never end up in the same position. The psychology we've explored today isn't unique to cults. The need to belong, the fear of losing the people around us, the tendency to justify our past decisions, and our desire to stay consistent with what we've already committed to are all normal parts of being human. That's why these same psychological forces can show up in places we don't expect. They can affect our relationships, our workplaces, and even the friendships we keep. Understanding these mechanisms isn't about judging the people who found themselves in high control groups. It's about recognizing that the human mind is far more influenced by belonging, identity, and emotion than most of us realize. And maybe that's the most important lesson of all. At the beginning of this video, you probably thought the question was, how could anyone join a cult? But psychologists suggest that was never the right question. The real question is, under the right circumstances, how certain are you that you wouldn't? If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to Behind Behavior, where we uncover the hidden psychology behind why we do what we do. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you guys in the next video.